Thanks for having me, Brendan. I'm so happy to be here as always. Um, Always nice to have a chat with you.
Now, for people who are watching, listening, all the things, who are you, Marce? Because I know who you are. I know you as someone super awesome in the tech space. I don't think everybody knows exactly who you are and what you do. So, elevator pitch.
So, I am currently the technical PR manager for ASUS South Africa. Previously, I was the digital editor for Stuff Magazine South Africa, and I'm just a consumer tech junkie. I absolutely love the space. I love consumer tech and toys and playing with all of them. But at the same time, now it's become more of a real big profession, career thing,
Yeah.
and it's cool to see that side of the industry, the internal workings of the industry.
It's great to have this conversation where we talk about some of the things you guys have announced at CES because you announced a lot of stuff. And then touch on some of the other products you guys sort of announced towards the end of last year, and just sort of try to get a general understanding of what's happening in the space right now, because it's a weird, wonderful year. I think it's going to be for laptops, PCs, monitors. We've seen some really odd things, not just from you guys, because you guys excel at pushing the envelope, but I think everybody's kind of being like, hey, maybe we should try doing some weird things.
Yeah. So CES obviously is a place to showcase your weird and wonderful tech. Everyone does it every year. Anyway, CES, we announced quite a lot of cool stuff. We're not going to talk about all of them because it's a lengthy list, but we can talk about whatever were your favorite features and what were my favorite features, and then we can go into those.
I mean, I think when you talk about ASUS, I think most people know ASUS not just for the weird and wonderful laptops, but mostly because of ROG. The gaming side I think is probably the most recognized side of ASUS. So I think let's touch on that, because you had everything from new Strix Scar and Strix G series gaming laptops. You had the ROG Flow. You had the display. So what was it? The Swift OLED. I've actually got it up on the monitor because it's just too much to remember. So I'm reading my own notes here. Okay.
That's fine.
You guys announced, and I'm quoting it, the world's first quad band Wi-Fi 7 gaming router.
Yeah.
Um,
Those the
like where do we
components.
start?
Okay, let's go laptops. Laptops is where I understand most of what's going on.
Okay,
Um,
let's start at the laptops.
okay, cool. So the gaming laptops, the major announcement for this year was the 18-inch Strix Scar.
Yeah.
This means that 18-inch laptops are coming back, and that's not a small feat to build.
No.
Beastly 18-inch laptop is insane. It's absolutely something you we didn't think would happen. Everything was getting smaller in terms
Mm.
of consumer tech at some point. Now we're going bigger again, apparently, and I think that will be one of the major gaming devices that will trend this year. We'll see a lot more of that. It's coming to South Africa. We will have a local launch planned, and there's a lot of interesting stuff around this machine, but I can't talk about a lot of the embargoed information. That's a big gaming one that I definitely wanted to touch on. What were the other ones? There was a Zephyrus, there's a G14 and a G16. Did you see that? You loved the small one.
I was just gonna say there was the evolution of what I, for Wanted magazine, named as laptop of the year for 2022. And when I saw it, I was about to message you, and I was like, "No, she's on vacation or she's busy working. Don't disturb the woman." But I lost my mind. I
Yeah.
honestly lost my mind because I didn't think you could make such a great laptop better, and some of you guys did.
So yeah, the much loved G14 is getting a bigger sibling. It'll be the 16-inch
Mm,
G16. Also with the anime matrix on the back, which is a
it's
well
so
loved
fun.
feature. Everyone
It's
always speaks
so
about it.
fun.
And there was also the M16, which was our lower range gaming laptop in the Zephyrus range.
Mm.
And that one is also getting the anime matrix on the back, which is a cool additional feature.
Like, I want to jump back to what you said about the 18-inch laptops. It is weird that we are getting bigger because, as you said, went smaller. And I think me personally, my personal sort of display size preference would be the 14-inch, because I think for me it's the sort of perfect middle ground between portability but also size and power. But I do find it interesting that people are sort of looking now maybe more towards larger displays in terms of laptops and even monitors. Even monitors are getting slightly more
Yeah.
um, slightly bigger, slightly more interesting, slightly more unusual. Why? Just maybe not even in a professional ASUS, from an ASUS perspective, but just sort of coming from the background of tech that you have. Why do you maybe think that people are now looking towards, hey, maybe a larger display is the way to go?
I think, especially when it comes to gaming, people are always looking for larger displays. If you do anything close to kind of pro gaming, or you play a lot of Call of Duty or shooters, you want that field of view. You need to see as much as possible to
Mm,
perform as well as possible. So I think larger displays in terms of gaming does help a lot. And then also, if you just consider work from home, if people are building setups at home and they need a mobile workstation, they still want to run whatever 3 or
mm,
up to 10 apps and see everything while they're working and work across apps. It's always obviously better to have a larger display, even if you don't have multiple displays. So I think it is obviously a personal preference. I prefer smaller laptops in terms of mobile workstations because I do like to carry them around with me. But when it comes to having a setup at home or a setup at work or a gaming setup specifically, it's better to have a larger display so you can work across different
mm.
apps or just see more things.
I mean, I'm sitting here with a laptop and then a massive like 34-inch curved monitor, so that I can you know open all the tabs, see everything at the same time. And sometimes I sit here and I was like, this is a little bit of overkill just because of the size of this monitor. And then other people say, no, we would like another monitor or another display of some size, some form factor, whatever, just so that we can do everything. But I've noticed that those people are, one, arguably more organized than I am, which is not saying much. I think everybody's more organized than I am. But also, they are more sort of gaming orientated things. So do you think maybe it's gaming is having more of an impact, I think, than it's had previously on the consumer sort of space in terms of PCs and laptops? Or am I just sort of making things up here?
I think gaming in itself is a space where people like to customize.
Mm,
So they people would rather go, or people who build PCs would rather go and build a custom PC. But if they are into laptops, it's nice to have options because
mm,
every single person will want something different for their setup. And um, whether they'll need a extra monitor or not is also all up to preference, and whether they want RGB lighting is all up to preference. And that's
yeah.
what gaming's about. It's a very customizable space. So when it comes down to our laptop range, that's why we offer like so many different form factors, so many different shapes and sizes
Mm.
and performance modes, and like different component specs. So everything you need, or what anyone could need, we try to
Yeah.
offer. Obviously, yeah,
Well, I mean, let's talk about some of that, because form factors, I think this year, from what I've seen at CES, has been more interesting than I think we've seen in a long time. You guys have got the ROG Flow X series, so the
yeah,
X16 and the X13. But the one I'm even more interested in is the Z, or since we're in South Africa, the Z13.
yeah.
Because when I first saw pictures, I looked and it's like, what military grade tablet laptop hybrid in the middle of the jungle and using this to, I don't know, take out unknown enemies is this thing?
It kind of
Because
feels like that, if
it
to be
does.
completely honest.
It looks very sort of rugged and durable. Like, if I was, I don't know, in like a Jack Ryan thing, saving someone from, you know, I don't know, in the middle of the jungle, this is the thing I would take with. But at the same time, it's got that little sort of cutout display thing, um, and it's got the lighting and everything. And I was like, but this also looks like I could game on it at the same time. And it's
Yeah,
also got this hinge which allows it to fold and sort of stand up in so many different at so many different degrees and so many different form factors, and I think makes it so usable. And I looked at it and immediately I thought, what was the Microsoft laptop tablet thing that they tried
The
to do? There was,
the Surface, was it a Surface? No, it's not.
it,
It had this weird name.
yeah, it was.
Um,
I can't even remember what it is, but yeah, you know exactly which one I'm talking about.
with a detachable keyboard, or it had that felt keyboard. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, there was quite a few of them to be fair. I'm glad
yeah,
they did away with that. Um, but yeah, it was that was meant for artists, and
yeah.
it never quite worked out. And then a few other people have tried it, and it was not bad. But this, arguably, I think, is one of the more interesting things because
Yeah.
it looks like a tablet. I'm not sure if it is a tablet.
So
It's a weird
it is
hybrid,
a tablet. So
but it
the
looks more
keyboard,
powerful than a tablet.
yeah, the keyboard is actually completely detachable. So it is in its
Okay.
essence a tablet, with a kickstand. And then what makes it, yeah, like you say, very interesting is it's so powerful. It has an
Mm,
RTX 3050, or the previous gen at least. We'll announce the later gen this year, obviously, after embargoes. But the RTX 3050 in a tablet is actually a feat in itself. Like, how
mm,
even did I don't even know how that happened. And then it also had the Intel 12th gen
yeah.
Core i9 processor in it. That's like a lot of desktop PCs don't even run those specs. And this is
Mm.
a tablet with a full OLED display that's touchscreen, and it's specable up to, I think, 16 gigs of RAM, while being the most portable gaming laptop that you can have on you.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been the biggest fan of the sort of hybrid thing, where it can be a laptop, it can be a tablet, because it's usually sort of for me, it's usually been the tablet side that lets things down.
Yeah,
Because, there's been this whole sort of argument about tablets in terms of tablets replacing laptops, and they've never lived up to it. And I
yeah.
see slowly that's sort of changing. It's been more of a
I think
software
that
issue.
was, yeah, there was a
Yeah,
software thing there.
it was, but I think when you start looking at things like this and the fact that Microsoft is actually making moves in terms of the OS, to sort of not sideline something that's tablet based, I think now you potentially have that sort of reality coming into being. But now we actually need the hardware to back it up, and I think things like this definitely make it very compelling. I'll say that much.
So, an interesting thing that I found while seeding my review device to media in South Africa is that a lot of them use the tablet form factor to just prop it up as a screen somewhere,
Mhm.
and then they connected a wireless controller, an Xbox controller, and then you play like you would on a console,
Oh, that's
but
clever.
it's yeah, obviously a wireless controller. It can
Yeah.
sit where you can travel with it, and it's just a little screen, but it has enough power to run whatever game you want through Steam or whatever you use.
Well, you see, I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that because again, I'm not a gamer, so my love for these things would be content creation and normal everyday work. So whether it's invoicing, writing articles, or whatever the case might be. Um, but I mean, we were chatting towards the end of last year about my favorite laptop, and the thing I remember saying to you was that yes, I know it's probably meant for gaming, but what I loved about it is the fact that and you actually mentioned this, is the fact that a lot of those features and a lot of the power that people have come to love for gaming laptops is actually great as well for content creators. And I
Yeah.
think ASUS, more than anybody else, is occupying that space in a way that makes me very happy, but also in a way that makes me surprised that no one else is doing.
So, especially this year, we are going into more of a standard of having better displays in gaming laptops as well.
Mm,
So, ASUS has already previously made OLED almost a standard across our whole range. I know this year almost the whole consumer range will have OLED displays on it. And then in gaming side, we have mini LED displays becoming the
yeah.
norm,
So like
which
the
are
Zephyrus
brilliant.
G14.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the whole G range. I can't tell you exactly which ones, but a lot of them. I don't know about the Strix Scar,
Mm,
but almost all of them will have mini LED displays in them now, which will also help in people who do content creation, obviously, because you want that nice display, you want the good color contrast ratios and
yeah.
stuff. So that's a really good upgrade in the gaming side.
Yeah, it is, and that's sort of one of the things I think we were both alluding to when I said I didn't think that that laptop could get any better, and then you're like, actually, we've got a few more tricks up our sleeves. Um, but it is interesting that you mentioned the mini LED thing because that seems to be one of the big things that's happening in the industry this year, which is displays. Displays are ramping up to a new level, and it seems like mini LED is sort of being positioned to become the new standard, especially for the more high end, more premium, or content creator and sort of gaming kind of stuff.
Yeah. Of course, like OLED, personally, I still prefer OLED. I
Mm,
think it is still a higher standard. Um, but when it comes to gaming, you still want to have that balance with frame rates. That's
mm,
something that's important for gamers, to keep the frame rates up there, and then also have really good contrast and quality and all of that stuff. So, and with OLED, I know it's not completely possible to up the frame rate
mm.
that well anymore, yet. So I think the mini LED is a good middle standard to go with. It's still a massive upgrade from normal
Oh yeah.
IPS panels. So yeah,
Well, touching on frame rate and sort of jumping away from laptops, we've got to touch on this the Swift Pro, and then it's numbers and letters that looks like create a password that you've never used before. That's the ROG Swift Pro PG248QP. See what I meant by seems like a password. And again, I'm going to quote you guys: the world's fastest 540 hertz gaming monitor. And it's like 540 hertz.
yeah,
What?
that's. I don't even know if we can see that fast.
Listening,
Can our
I
eyes comprehend that?
don't think it can. Just
But
just
I think
use
for
your
those
imagination.
I think for those esports pros and stuff, they have
Mm.
a sixth sense with these things. They can see faster than normal people.
They've got special kind of eyes. I don't know what's happening there, but listen, yeah, that is a feat. When I read that, I was like, "Is there a typo on this press release? Did someone put in a number that didn't belong there? Did you push a 5 instead of a 2? What's happening?"
Yeah,
I think it is very, very interesting. But the other thing that I know a lot of people are talking about when it comes to everything they've seen at CES this year, and I think it was actually Mr. Mobile, Michael Fisher, who was raving about this in his CES video that came out very recently, was he said that his favorite laptop that he saw, or his favorite piece of technology he saw at CES, was the ASUS 3D, the Pro Art.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And obviously, you can't show that on camera, but he was just like, listen here, this is like nothing you've ever seen before. This
I
doesn't feel
also saw,
gimmicky.
yeah, Marquez Brownlee also tweeted about it, and he was like, "This is kind of cool, guys."
Yeah, I'm looking at this video and I was like, I literally had my phone in my hand. I was like, Marseille, which kidney do I need to sell to get my hands on this for like a day even?
Yeah, so I'm still waiting for my review samples. I haven't even seen it yet. I can't wait to experience this tech, but it sounds incredible. So basically, what it is naked eye 3D, right? So it means you don't need 3D glasses or any kind of attachment to your face like VR to see 3D on these displays on these laptops. And it's coming to our Pro Art Studio Book 16 and the VivoBook Pro, which I think you've reviewed one of the previous gens.
I did, and I remember the conversation we had about it was again, the Vivo books are the sort of more affordable way to sort of get into a proper content creation laptop.
Yeah.
Doesn't bring you all the features of, say, like the studio books, the pro art stuff, but it brings you so many of the features in a far more sort of affordable package, which I don't know, no one else is doing it, but I also think it is very interesting because again, it shows that you guys are sort of hitting the different price points, and the fact that you were doing that with the spatial vision, as you said, you don't need glasses or anything for that 3D display. The fact that you're doing it in both the super high end Pro Art, but also the Vivo book, sort of again just sort of reinforces what you were saying about the Vivo book last year, which is that it
Yeah.
is sort of almost the more affordable everyday person content creator device.
Yeah, I think that's something that ASUS does very well is it tries not to exclude too
Mm,
many groups when developing products. And the VivoBook Pro is still one of my favorite laptops. Like if I had to buy myself or someone I know a laptop, that's what I would go for because I know it's a
mm,
well built machine. It's built to last very long, and it has really good features and specs. So you will be able to throw just about anything at it and it can run it. And they start at 25,000 rand, which is really not bad for a creative machine. Um, Obviously, we're still waiting for pricing. We can't
yeah.
confirm anything in terms of what the spatial vision machines will cost in South Africa. It's obviously always a gamble with the volatile rand and dollar, but we'll see how they land. And I'm excited to see what the local media think about it.
Hey, listen here. You know, my first love is the G14. It's going to take a lot to swim me away from that, but I am very keen to sort of see these things. Um, a discussion you've probably heard from people before, because it's definitely something that people have brought up to me is we know ASUS makes great devices, but a lot of people, especially as you sort of move up the tiers, are like, listen here, these are not exactly cheap in terms of pocket impact. It's not like we paying, I don't know, 5,000 rand, 8,000 rand. People sit there and is like, is it worth spending this much for a laptop? And that's when I've sort of had to sit down and have the conversation with him of like, I get that things are difficult in life right now, rand value, global issues when it comes to recession, or everything is just a dumpster fire at the moment. But then I say to them, if you were looking at the equivalent from someone else, in terms of what you're going to be using this device for, this is one of the only companies who's actually giving you options that are going to bring you what you need at different price points. No one's saying you have to go and buy a Pro Art Studio book, for example. You could buy a Vivo Book Pro. Um, but you also have to look at, are you just buying this for now to get by, or are you looking at this as an investment piece to help you build, a business, a portfolio, or whatever it might be? Because if you look at it that
Yeah,
way, to me, that's a good investment. And I remember writing in one of my pieces, a friend of mine, also a former journalist, he's his parents were looking for, at different stages, were looking for new laptops without thinking. He was like, listen, he reaches out to me, and I was like, he gives me his list of options, and I saw an Asus device, and I was like, that's the one. And his mom was using it, and she was loving it. And like many parents, not the most technologically advanced, but she was able to adapt to it very quickly. And then his dad moved away from a MacBook to an Asus, and this man is like, why have I not done this before? And it's like, but here's the thing that I find so interesting is, you know the other thing besides just cost factor is people talk about sort of learning curves. And when you look at people who are not that technologically savvy, are able to adapt that easily, and you can get a great laptop for under 6,000, under 5,000 in some cases, from Asus, then I sit there and be like, okay, cool, but what is it that you actually want when you're complaining about price? Because no one else is
mm,
giving you all of this in that sort of form factor for that price that is going to have the longevity. Jesus, I cannot say this word, longevity, that you're going to get from ASUS. And I'm just sort of wondering what your thoughts are around that, because the reality is, not everybody can afford tech. We're not even talking about ASUS right now. We're talking about tech in
yeah.
general. So I'm just sort of wondering what would your thoughts are around people's sort of feelings and thoughts about stuff like that.
That's it's such a good point because I think a lot of people don't realize that the South African market and a lot of third world country markets is so much different
Mm,
to first world country markets when it comes to tech and marketing tech and selling tech to people. Like we have to do it in such a different way, and
mm,
we need to understand that people have different priorities here. So when it comes down to like I need to buy a laptop now, people are going to consider one thing first, and they're always going to consider price first.
yeah.
Um, whether they can afford 5,000 Rand or 3,000 Rand or 20,000 Rand. That's the first thing they consider every time.
mm,
And that's how we develop our marketing and sales strategy in South Africa. We have to take these things into account. We love to promote our big fancy laptops, the Zen books. The Zen books have the best features, the
mm,
fanciest features. Um, the base specs and these gaming laptops, the Strix Scar, for example, it retails for what, like 60,000 Rand. We promote
mm,
those almost every month because that looks cool and
mm,
people love to see that stuff. But it doesn't mean that we're selling a lot of them because people don't have money for that
mm.
kind of tech in South Africa.
Yeah.
So we like to show off the fancy things because we want people to know what we're capable of. This is what
Mm,
ASUS is doing. But we know that when they go into the shops, they need to buy what they can afford, which is why in our sales strategy, we do have really good laptops at every price
mm,
point. And we also have a very strong channel presence. We sell
mm,
the bulk of our laptops through brick and mortar stores, and we have really good relationships with all of the retailers. So that's the biggest part of our sales strategy is making sure that there are affordable laptops in stores for people who really need to just walk into a store and buy
mm,
something that they need because they probably need one for a job or for their studies or for school, and they're going to buy the one that fits their budget
mm.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that conversation is sort of really sort of resurged again because of, Apple's announcement now with the M2 series, so the M2 Pro and M2 Max, powered laptops, which have just come into the country. And then when the pricing came out, I don't know if you saw some of the tweets because
So
one of my
I saw
tweets
you.
was like, how much can I get for a kidney?
Yeah,
And I think Mr. Flack was actually one of the people who liked it, and Rafil Way, who used to be on Cape Talk, was also one of the people who's like, now you asking the real questions. A lot of
yeah,
people were sort of resonating with that sort of thing because you look at laptops going up to 70 odd thousand rand, and people are messaging me and like DMing me and being like, who who is this supposed to be for? What world does this company live in when they can sell 70,000 rand laptops and just unashamedly put out that kind of pricing?
yeah,
And again, I think it's a similar sort of thing to what you were saying is, it's not going to be for everybody. Those high end sort of 60, 70, 80,000 rand things is not going to
yeah,
be for everybody, but it is the thing that gets attention. And I think people mistake the attention for, oh, well, this is the only thing.
yeah. I think that is a big part of it. So it's important to realize that, especially ASUS, like our volume drivers are the sub 10,000
Mm,
Rand laptops. Though that's what we sell the bulk of in this country. And I guess that's where our channel strategy works very well. We make sure that there's always availability in that price class because we
mm,
do sell a lot there. And I know a lot of other brands do that. So I think it's a very common strategy here
yeah.
because online shopping hasn't really taken off. Like it has picked up,
Yeah.
but we're not quite there yet.
Well,
There's still a big love for in-store shopping in
we
South
may
Africa.
we may have a different take on this conversation sometime later this year. We'll see on that specific portion of this conversation.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I
I
know
think
what you.
everybody
I
knows. Everybody
know.
knows.
But I think that general public in South
Mm,
Africa just prefer going into shops still,
yeah.
and I don't understand that, but I think
Well,
it's just how it is.
I mean, listen, I'm with you. I give me the option to buy something online, and I'm very happy. But I think it is because in this country we still want the tangible sort of experience of what does it look like? How does it feel?
Yeah, you
Does it
want
live
to
up to
pick it
what the all of that stuff? Because again, I think the cost factors involved. I think it's no matter how much money you're spending, whether it's $50 or 50,000, you want to know that the money you're spending is actually going to be worth it for whatever you're spending it on. So
Yeah,
I'm just sort of speaking from what I think it could be, but I don't know. But yeah, I think that's an important thing is that people know that ASUS is not just the super high end, fancy, pro art, and even the foldables. And we need to touch on that foldable, by the way, that you guys sort of brought to the country end of last year. But it's not just that. Those are the things that any person knows is going to get attention online, on social, where it's overcrowded with everybody trying to get your attention. But Asus honestly does make some of the best, and I don't want to call them entry level, but some of the sort of more pocket friendly laptops I've used. They're not for me, but that's just because that's not my use case. But in a
Yeah, you're not the
heartbeat,
market.
no, yeah, that's the thing. In a heartbeat, it is what I would buy for someone if they needed, whether it's an entry level, whether it's a content creator, whether it's like the B9, for business. Um, Asus is always sort of, I've come to realize, my first in mind go to, oh, this is the brand is going to have something for you. And again, not
Yeah.
saying this because it's you. This is a genuine thing, because I think people know me. I will tell you to your face if I don't like your product. um, but I think you guys really are sort of positioned well. I just think people don't necessarily see beyond the flash and the hype, and that's not a you guys fault. I think it just is what it is, and I think people sometimes just like to complain. Let's just be fair. I will say what it is. um,
Honestly, yes.
but before we touch on the foldables, I want to jump into some of the peripherals and accessories and stuff that you guys did, because you did a little bit of a collab with AIM Lab, if I'm remembering correctly, for your
Yes.
wireless gaming mouse. And they, what was it that had the? Okay, wait, let me find my notes. It had the AIM Lab settings optimizer, and then there was, oh, the mouse pad, the gaming mouse pad.
Yeah, and they link together, right?
Yeah, which is, I looked at this and I sat there and was like, but how? But also, why has this never been a thing before?
So I'm not actually the authority on this. We have a
Yeah.
different technical person in the office that works with the peripherals. But I can just give you my opinion.
Yes,
um,
please.
yeah. So being a gamer, also, I think it's something that, like you say, should have, like, how has this not happened yet?
Yeah.
It seems so obvious, but
Mm,
also at the same time, I feel like consumers might be like, oh, now I need to buy like a bundle. I need to buy both the mouse and the mouse pad. But if you really are into optimizing your gameplay, it's a
mm.
no brainer to do something like that, to make sure that all of your components link together and work together seamlessly. It makes so much sense.
It does, when it's one of those hindsight kind of things. It makes sense after the fact. But I sit here and I think about the kind of tech that they would have had to sort of put together and work on to make this all work together, because it's wireless, but it connects and it's low latency. And I'm like, but how? What wizardry and black magic have you used to make this a thing? Um, I mean, again, I'm not the target audience for this, but I do find it very interesting. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, and I know you're probably going to say you're not an expert, and that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to do a general overview of this. Is you guys debuted the world's first quad band Wi-Fi 7 gaming router, which is the ROG Raptor GTBE98. There are too many letters and numbers in these things, please.
I know the
Um,
components, or the peripherals and components, have
listen
crazy
here.
names.
This is
I
like
don't know how people remember them.
this is like I'm playing what's a battleships or something. Okay, I think yours
Oh
is a
yeah,
GTBE98. Did I win? Did I win? Um,
that's exactly that.
but that's what it reminds me of. But I'm not going to ask you to sort of delve into gaming routers and explain the how this all works. What I am going to ask you though is, why should someone be choosing a gaming router over, whether it's a mesh router or any just sort of normal kind of router? What's the benefit of a gaming router versus a normal traditional router?
So I can't comment on Wi-Fi 7 yet. I don't have enough knowledge about that, so I
That's
won't
fine.
be doing that. But I believe gaming routers have the capability to optimize network for specific devices. So they will actually know, well, this is a gaming device and this is a gaming device. So this is a PS5 and this is a ASUS ROG laptop and this is a PC. So I need
Mm,
to optimize network for those devices and then decrease network usage for other devices. So they make sure that the gaming devices always have more network capacity
mm.
to perform better in terms of online gameplay.
Okay, I mean, again, not the target audience, so not for me. I've got a mesh. a mesh setup, Wi-Fi 6, and even though I know
Oh, nice.
Wi-Fi 6E is sort of currently the standard around the world, um, I find this very interesting because I was having a conversation with MediaTek towards the end of last year, and we were talking about the sort of state of innovation in South Africa and across the rest of the continent. Sort of very general overview kind of conversation. And they were saying to me that South Africa is essentially, and this is very sort of generally speaking, is essentially one sort of generation behind when it comes to what we're seeing in the rest of the world in terms of, things like Wi-Fi 7 or Wi-Fi 6E, or you know, sort of things along that line and that sort of nature.
Yeah, yeah,
Even 5G. And they're like, that's not as big an issue as people might think, because a lot of the hardware products, whether it's TVs or whatever else might be that we're getting, are things that were actually made for Wi-Fi 6 or LTE or whatever. So it kind of works out. But
yeah,
they were saying it also does bring a lot of opportunity to this country. But when you look at things like, Wi-Fi 7 sort of now being pushed slowly but surely at CES, for me as a person on this side of the industry, I sit and think, that's great. When do we start seeing this become not niche sort of products or offerings in the country, and it becomes more available to more of the masses? And it's not
yeah,
sort of pointing fingers at ASUS for, oh, you've got a Wi-Fi 7 gaming router. I think it's great that you guys have that, because it'll push more people to sort of get into the space, and eventually will have the knock-on effect. It's just very interesting when you look at all of these super advanced technologies, and sort of speaking to what you were saying about the fact that the super high end premium things are maybe not the things you guys sell the most of because people don't have the money. I think it's also because of the infrastructure state that we have in this
yeah.
country and across the continent. But I do find it's so interesting when people are like, oh, this is amazing, it's wonderful, but most of the people just can't get it because of multiple reasons.
I
That's,
think,
again,
yeah,
it's not a dig at you guys, it's just an observation.
no, no. Brandon, this is something I think about a lot as well,
Mm,
especially in consumer tech and tech in
mm,
general. South Africa is always like a year or two behind with
mm,
most things. Even when we're bringing in new laptops, sometimes it takes a while before they land here and they're available to the general public
yeah.
after they've been announced, because announcements and launches in the US, for example, happen so
Mm,
quickly that they have access to all of they have access
yeah.
to product even before the launch happens. Here that doesn't necessarily happen, and even when it comes to technologies like you said, like Wi-Fi 6 and 5G, how long did it take since
Mm,
5G was announced to rollout happened probably a year or two after announcement, global announcement of 5G.
mm,
And then we only now really seeing it become more of a standard in
mm,
mobile networks and mobile technology. Not, it's still not a standard. We're still really in the implementation phase of
yeah.
5G. Same with Wi-Fi 6. Like, I don't have
Mm,
Wi-Fi 6 at home. I think a lot of South Africans can say the same.
yeah.
Um, so it is something that really takes time in this country to
Mm.
adopt, especially when it comes to new technologies.
Yeah, and I think for, again, not an audience I know super well, but I think especially for the sort of gaming market, and I know for a lot of tech enthusiasts and just sort of general consumer tech, you want the latest and greatest. I do. I'm a geek like that. I was like, "Ooh, I don't need this, but I do want this.
Yeah.
And I think also when you work in sort of this segment of the industry, people just assume you do have the latest and greatest. And I've got a lot of friends who are, tech journalists, one of whom writes for one of the big global publications, who's using a like the Huawei P30 Pro is still their main driver. And I
But
was
that
like,
was a great device. Was
listen,
a
it,
good
it
phone.
it was the last great Huawei phone, and I shouldn't say this because I'm about to go to a launch later this week. But it was the last great because of the GMS situation. But I think
Yeah.
the sort of thing from that is that people have this perception of, well, there's so much marketing and advertising, and you work in tech media, you've got to have it. And I'm like, no, sometimes we just stick to what we know works well and has proven to be consistent, at so many things that that's the thing we want to work with. You don't need to have the latest, greatest just because you see your favorite person on YouTube, toting around in their bags, being like, oh my
Yeah.
word, this is amazing. And I think that's where you guys do so well, even though you have those challenges. And I know all the tech companies have the challenges, but I think you
Yeah.
guys do so well in terms of what you are offering. I remember at your, and it's funny because I'm actually wearing the T-shirt. I don't know if you can see
Oh
when you
yeah.
guys had your day last year where Nitesh was there from Intel, and he was sitting next to me, and afterwards we were kind of chatting, and even before we were chatting, and he was like, "Oh, 13th gen is going to be amazing. You're going to love what you're going to see coming from the brands, but especially from ASUS, blah blah blah." And I sort of alluded to this type of conversation with him of it's great, but what is the reality when you look at South Africa versus rest of the world? And he was like, but this is the thing, we're not really selling i9s over here. We're not selling, we're not looking at people making the biggest jump to say Intel 13th gen immediately, because a lot of people may have just gone to 12th gen, so you don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to make the jump. um, but I think that those challenges are challenges that people are seeing everywhere, and it does make me
Yeah.
wonder, for you guys as ASUS, you think some of the stats you pushed out last year where you were like the number one OLED sort of laptop PC company. But in South Africa, what are you guys actually selling more? Is it OLED based devices? When it comes to gaming, is it the Tough series? What is doing well for you guys in South Africa, sort of over the last 12 months?
So, as you said, gaming side, we are selling a lot of tough devices that they are positioned as our entry level gaming
Mm,
machines. They start at like 12,000 rand, which is
which is good.
crazy if you consider
Yeah.
they have gaming components inside them. And they're actually brilliant. That range is so good for students. So if people are looking for laptops for their children, or their children are students, um, tough machines work very well for all school work, and they can do some design work if they want, and they can do even like gaming on the side when they get
Mm,
home. So I think that's a market where the tough machines are doing very well. And then obviously on the consumer side, we are selling a lot of the like sub 15,000 rand laptops.
so like
That's
your
where our
Vivo.
Vivo Book range starts. Yeah. So the Vivo Book range is doing very, very well in South Africa. And then that one goes up to the Vivo Book Pro, which we're selling some of. And when you go up to premium range, yeah, that's just, when people have money, they buy those. Um, that's the Zen book side. And Pro Art is going almost more into industry and business. It's
Mm,
almost more on the commercial side, because they fit very well
mm,
into things like designers, industrial
yeah.
designers, architects, and stuff. So they love those. And then on the commercial side, obviously we're pushing really big on the commercial side, to grow ASUS as a business laptop
Mm,
brand in South Africa. It really hasn't gained a lot of traction yet, but it's something we're actively working on in terms of marketing and getting the laptop into actual big business and small business.
mm,
We're focusing on a whole range of different commercial aspects, and trying to get our laptops into there and speak about it more. We're doing more success stories in business. We're working on new marketing strategies and stuff. So that's a big focus for
mm.
ASUS this year.
Okay.
Which isn't that's not the sexiest. That's not the nice like you want to hear about
Well,
the expert books, eh?
listen, yeah, I love the expert book. Firstly, because I got to review the what's it, the B9,
Yeah.
um, and I loved it because my favorite business laptop before that was from HP, the Dragonfly, the Elite Dragonfly. Like that was just, I didn't think anybody could even come close to rivaling it or exceeding it. And then the B9 came along. I was like, actually, wait a second, there's worthy competition that actually, has got a lot going for it. Um, but yeah, it may not be the sexiest or the most exciting, but I say this to people a lot when it comes to tech. The real sort of influential tech and the things that actually have impact are not necessarily the sexiest, most exciting,
Mm,
flashy things. It does filter across. And I
yeah.
think if you look at the entire ASUS sort of lineup, you'll see that things may debut on the sort of more premium high end, but they do filter across eventually. And it happens for all tech. Anyone who's in the industry knows that. And sometimes you've got to do it in the more high end because people are expecting more sort of boundary pushing things in the more expensive things, but
Exactly.
also it is well within, I think, the cost factor of making that product. And if it is viable, then we can sort of filter down to the more pocket friendly things.
Yeah.
Um, but what I do want to check on is you guys brought a phone to the country last year for the first time ever.
Yes.
Um, and you had it at, I keep wanting to say
Rage.
Comic Con. I thank you. I'm like it's not
Yes.
Comic Con. How much am
Yeah.
I not a gamer? At Rage, and I'm not going to ask for specific numbers, but I'm just curious. What is the interest been around the device? Are people buying it? Are they wanting to buy it? What are people saying about it?
So we are currently still waiting for some approvals to go through before
Okay,
we can actually ship the device to customers.
okay,
But we have had a lot of interest online and in person at Rage. We had so much interest, and people were very excited to see the brand
yeah,
in mobile phone form in South
yeah,
Africa, because it's the first time the ROG phone has been available in South
mm,
Africa, or any of the ASUS brand phones. And I think it'll be interesting to see how it does going forward. I know a lot of people have asked for mobile network offerings and contract options
mm,
and stuff like that, because, as we said, South Africans don't necessarily have, the liquidity to
yeah,
purchase technology. It's just very expensive. So, um, not that the ROG phone is expensive. I think it's priced very well considering the mobile phone space in South Africa.
mm,
But that's something we will be looking at going forward. If we bring in another generation of the phone, then we are looking at partnering with retailers and partnering with mobile networks to make it a bit more accessible and a bit more widespread, to reach a bit further into all of the crevices of South Africa
mm,
in terms of telling people about the phone. But yeah, it's just a really cool gaming device. I mean, it's a mobile phone that's got some of the best computational power you can get in a mobile device, and it has a beautiful screen, 165 hertz OLED
yeah,
display. um, and yeah, I just think it's an awesome little device if you love mobile gaming, if you want something that
mm,
performs very well on the day to day, even if you just really, like, I do this. I open like 3,000 apps on my phone and
yeah.
don't clear anything.
Mm.
So if you're heavy on phone use, that's a good device to have because it will cope. It will 100% manage under workload.
Cheeky question here. Zenfone 9? Anything? No,
Not
maybe.
not at the moment, no. We're not looking at the Zen phones for the market yet, unfortunately. I just think it's not that well known in South Africa. Eh? I think
Fair.
only tech media know
Yeah.
about the Zen phones.
It's the
So if
size. I love that sort of small but not, compromising on power or anything form factor. I love that.
yeah, that phone won a lot of awards last
Hmm?
year.
I mean,
Yeah,
even the previous gen did. Even the
yeah,
Zenfone 8 series was just phenomenal. And it is because, I don't know, I think it's a weird space in mobile right now because we know Apple killed off the mini with the 12 mini and the 13 mini. And they went for the larger 14 plus, which is not
yeah,
selling. And I say this almost like I can hear Lindsay Shooter's voice in my ear saying, I told you it wasn't going to sell. Because he was a huge fan of the mini. And the more I've sort of spoken to people, it's a weird sort of thing where people they want the larger size, but they also don't want it to be bulky to carry, but they also don't want foldables. And it's like, so what do you want? You don't even know. And there's
yeah,
a lot of people who do still want that sort of portable but powerful form factor, which I think the Zenfone is very uniquely positioned to offer. But again, as you say, all my friends are techies. Um, and we all talk about it, but I don't think any normal person who's not in tech is probably that excited because, I
yeah.
mean, this from your time at stuff. South Africans are very brand loyal to, especially the mobile brands
Very.
that they know.
It's so challenging. I think even just for our small launch with the ROG Phone
Mm,
6 to bring a mobile phone into the market right now, because it's so dominated by the big three that it's hard to even imagine
Mm,
competing. So we're not even ready to compete there.
mm,
We're not there yet. We're just trying to get into the market and see how people react, because it is a
yeah,
niche product. I mean,
yeah,
we're not gonna sell to every Pete and Sunny on the streets. We're just gonna
this
sell
is true.
to the real gamers
Yeah.
who know the brand, who love the brand, and they
Mm.
know its quality, and they know, this is for gaming. This is what I do. So that's the guys we're targeting.
I mean, I
And
will
girls,
say,
sorry.
I take guys as a very sort of genuine. I call everybody
I do
guy,
that. I know, I do
so
that too.
you don't have to. If anyone's getting
I
offended,
do that.
if anyone gets offended by that, then you know what, you are chronically online and go outside, go touch some grass. Because guys to me is a very genuine neutral term, so people must get over
Yeah.
themselves. I will say I do want to see Flack using the ROG. I want to see him using that phone because I think it'll be the most entertaining thing to watch.
Actually, I'm
Um,
gonna do that. I'm gonna send him one next week and see what
honestly, I
happens.
think it'll be the most entertaining thing to watch. But yeah, no, I think you make fair points about the sort of niche marketing. I'm asking the question obviously from the perspective of the tech sort of media. I don't even know what to call myself anymore. Tech media person, because the stranglehold that the top three have needs to be broken. It's not, competitive. It's not necessarily affordable, but also people want alternatives. They want viable
Yeah.
alternatives from brands that they know. And I know there is another mid-rangey brand coming to the country this year,
Mhm.
um, which obviously I'm not supposed to know, but people tell me things. Um, and I don't know how they're going to do because, you see the other brands coming in and it's like, you're not established here like, ASUS is with laptops and that sort of thing, and even they have to sort of put a pause on things when it comes to mobile. But anyway, before we wrap up, I just want to touch on like one or two more things quickly.
Okay.
Um, we need to talk about sustainability. It's been a big buzzword for a
Mm.
long time, but I think now we're really seeing companies actually put their money where their mouths are. Although ASUS is a little bit of a different situation in the sense that you've always put your money where your mouth is. When it comes to
Yeah.
sustainability, didn't you guys at one stage have like a bamboo laptop or something like a carbon
There
zero
was, yeah,
laptop or
you're
something?
actually right. There was the bamboo laptop. That was quite like long ago. I think
But that was before anybody was talking about
2020.
sustainability.
Yeah, so
You know,
you're very right about that. I saw a
yes.
picture of it last week and I was like, oh wow, this was a thing. So yeah, but I think this year, especially with CES, we ASUS went into a lot of the details of what we're
Mm,
doing in terms of sustainability, and there are a lot of changes happening in terms of actual physical product
mm,
that will definitely make an impact, I believe. So I know that all of our laptops have all of these certifications, and I
mm.
cannot remember any or all of them.
It's too
Um,
many.
they all like abbreviation. I just can't remember them. But anyway, they're all certified to
Mm,
be very green products, and all of the packaging going forward will be recyclable. All of the boxes that you will get
mm,
your laptops in. I know in the VivoBook range, they're doing a lot of effort actually that the innards of the boxes can be turned into laptop stands that you
yes,
can
I saw that.
use to lift your laptop up, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do. I mean, I think the key here is thinking creatively about things
Mm,
that already exist and that we are shipping to people on a daily basis. um, so it's important to take into account how it's affecting the environment. Obviously, it's it's one of the major problems of our time, to look after the environment. So I think it's cool to know that tech companies are doing their part. And yeah, I'm happy to be part of a company that really tries.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a far bigger issue than can be solved by just one company or one
Oh,
segment
yeah,
of the
of
industry,
course.
or just one industry. But I think the more people actually start making actual moves, that's not just good marketing, but then actually
Yeah.
doesn't sort of really pack anything behind it. I think the more change we can actually see. Um,
Yeah.
I think just to sort of wrap up, give us some sort of idea as to what we can expect from ASUS, in South Africa for 2023. Give the people something to sort of tease the appetite, like a nice Marvel screener for an upcoming blockbuster hit. Come on, Marseille, do your best cartoon. I don't know, something.
I'm not a super cinematic person, but I'll try. Um, so we can expect a lot of cool next gen components in the laptops. If you know all the big names, the Nvidias, the Intels, the
Mm,
AMD, all of the next gen is coming to our range, especially gaming. Keep an eye on the gaming range; it will be amazing. We are launching the new Strix locally
okay.
in February.
Oh
So
wow.
if you just tapped into our socials, our website, everything, you will see that it will be big.
Okay.
And then obviously we have all of the other big CES announcements coming to South Africa. I'm keen to see the spatial vision,
Mm,
and we will bring all of those into South Africa in limited quantity. So be sure to have a look if you are interested in fringe technology. It will be cool. I believe it will be cool. Yeah, it's hard to do second half of the year. I know kind of what's happening
yeah.
first half of the year, but we can do another one of these closer to the second half of the year, and then we'll go into that.
Mm. Yeah, I think people, always just assume, oh, but you work there, you've got to know. And as someone who comes from that side of the industry, it's a lot bigger than I think people think, and there's a lot more moving parts, and there's so many things that can impact whether something happens or doesn't happen. It doesn't matter how
Yeah,
far along the development line, a product or
it
anything is.
changes so
Hmm?
quickly. Everything changes so quickly.
So I think, yeah, let's do another one of these where we sort of touch on it towards the middle of the year. But I am
Yeah,
very keen to see some of these things. That spatial vision, I think, is arguably one of the things I'm most excited to see. So anyway, Marseille, thank you very much. I
thank you,
loved this
Brendan.
conversation.